No matter how well the first date goes, I never get my hopes up. It all goes downhill after she sees my micro penis.
What the hell is going on here?
Nothing, baby penis.
Yes, I did say small penis many times because that is in fact something that turns men on that have a small penis.
A cowboy hat means I'm ashamed of my small penis.
Why is it so small? Hi, it's so freaking small.
Bitch, get out.
Last Man Earth, my name is Lex Durgan. As always, I'm flanked by Matt Ralston. Matt won a key legal victory this week in his fight to identify as the towel used to wipe down the leg press machine at his West Hollywood gym. Courage comes in many forms. Today that form is one very troubling homoerotic fetish. You could really actually identify as anything you want now in California. They changed the law, Matt, in case you're interested.
You can identify as a towel?
You can identify as a towel, I believe. There are people trying to identify as animals currently, as different animals. And California has changed the law that you can open it up soon to identify as whatever you wish to,
Well, that was always the kind of joke. Like you would say, well, what's next? Someone can identify as a goat. And it's like, oh, that's very homophobic and insensitive. Yes. But that's actually what's going on now?
There's no actual benefit to it that I can notice, but I guess on your forums you could do it, I guess. I mean, I assume most people just do it as a lark. Because there's no actual benefit to identifying as a gym towel, necessarily.
So, well, on my license, which I actually have to get renewed coming up here.
They're going to be changing the gender options, just
I
so you know.
see it says male somewhere, I'm assuming. Yeah, sex, there's just an M.
Yeah.
So what if it's like hippopotamus?
I don't think I don't think it's gender identification. Yeah, I guess it is. I don't know if it's just gender identification or sexual identification or just personal identification. The world is going mad, Matt. The whole pronoun thing, they keep firing teachers now for using the kids' wrong pronouns, which is, I would just like, teaching seems like a shitty job as it is. If I got in trouble, if I got sat down and told that I was going to get in trouble if I didn't use the proper pronoun, they, them, that, whatever, for the student, like in 6th grade, I would just quit on the spot.
It does seem like a cool game show, though. Like, you go to a cocktail party, everyone introduces themselves as essentially their opposite gender.
Yes.
Some of them are named Caesar, and one guy's a fucking zebra. Then you get a buzzer and you go get quizzed and you see how tolerant you are. Yeah,
that doesn't sound like a cool game at all. That sounds horrible. It sounds like a good drinking game, perhaps, like a tranny drinking game.
Throw it on Fox, man.
You have to remember, or you put the card on their head of what they're identified as.
Yeah. There you
talk about it like Liar's Poker or something. This week's Last Man on Earth podcast is sponsored by old men ruining great memories of better days with masturbation stories. Thanks, Paul McCartney. 76 seems like the right age to bring up sex memories with John Lennon. Here's a rule. Never speak about the cocks of the dead. That was just one of the most disturbing stories I've heard. I don't know why it bothered me so much.
They said they masturbated together.
Yes.
For what reason?
They were just bored. They would just masturbate together, and they would he said it was in a silly way, which I don't know. That sounds like an excuse for like making out at boys camp with some other boy. Like, it was meaningless, goofy masturbation. Which I get. First of all, they were probably doing some drugs. So I get, that they were probably like doing shit like that. Actually, it was kind of funny because he said Lennon used to like scream out Winston Churchill when he came, which is kind of funny. But at the end of the day, I think those stories, when one of the guys dead, it feels like those are stories you shouldn't tell.
Yeah, and I just don't want to know what anyone's screaming out when they're coming, any dude, really. But, back then it was a lot more, like, even when I was a kid, like, we'd somehow get our hands on a porn.
Yes.
And I think everyone would just take turns beating off in some room of the house, although not in front of each other. But
no.
Back then, it was even, so hard to get your hands on porn, even though they were pretty well off, I'm sure. But you got to cart in a slide or a
well, I don't think it needed porn. They probably had all the girls. They probably had all the fucking girls they wanted, I guess.
Well, then why were they jerking off together?
I don't know. The biggest problem with this one is, like, now he's a crinkly old guy talking about masturbating, which is just disturbing. But also, like, one guy, Lennon's dead, so he can't come back with a funny, like, retort or say that never happened, or say, like, oh, Paul did it and, like, was a complete jerk about it. And
yeah, like,
Louis
C.K.
it was
all Paul's idea.
Yes.
I never felt comfortable doing it.
Yeah, now you got to be Lennon's, like, kids or grandkids, like, hearing stories about grandpa, like, masturbating. I don't know. It's just, I feel like all those stories, once one party dies, all sex stories have to go away. All embarrassing sex stories about the dead person That's speaking to me. That's speaking ill of the dead. Can't come back with that. At least it wasn't like some sort of more homo like touching shit.
Yeah, I mean, for like Paul McCartney, for how famous he's been for so long, like, isn't he a pretty normal dude? I've actually seen him around like at the Improv, and he's just pretty normal.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the weirdest thing he said, it's like that's a pretty good record.
Yeah, no, he is. He's still. I mean, he still craves attention. I think. I mean, he likes to like. He's still doing like all the Jimmy Fallon skits and doing all sorts of like promo stuff. He does like all the pranks on celebrities and stuff.
Yeah,
he definitely like likes the entertainment, like being in the spotlight. But yeah, no, he seems like a good enough guy. Just like you can't tell sex stories of people who can't respond.
I think he's been watching too much stand up, and he thinks that's how normal people like communicate.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because he's always at the Improv. He can't take a piss without fucking stupid comics going in the bathroom and trying to grab a selfie while he's whizzing.
Really?
But
Jesus.
yeah, maybe he's just watching too much like
yeah, maybe he fancies himself a comic and he's trying out some material.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It's not a bad story in terms of celebrity, I have to say. I mean, no one ever heard it before, and it's been 55 years, and he's telling a story that after you think it's like when the Beatles every year they come out with a new Beatles album of unreleased material, and you're always like, where was this material for the last 50 years? Like, oh, we found 17 more songs we're going to put out. Like,
yeah,
where the fuck were these songs? I mean, they've been famous for 50 years. So I give him credit on the fact he came up with a Beatles story no one's heard of for 55 years.
It also sounds like a very Beatles story. It's sort of innocent, a little bit naughty, but it's not real threatening in any way. And you got it matches the way the Beatles sound.
Yeah.
And then you have Led Zeppelin. It's like, oh, we had we stuck a shark up this groupie's vagina or whatever happened in that situation. That matches their style too. So there was a lot of Beatles. You can picture him giggling.
Yeah, smoking some opium, like with their long hair phase, and just doing some weird sex shit. Don't forget to become a patron of the show on patreon.com Last Man on Earth. Thanks to all our new patrons. As always, I'm going to close that one day. You won't become a patron anymore. I always wonder when they build those.
Brilliant strategy.
Yes. When they have, like, if you go to like a hospital, they have the donor wall, like the big donor wall, or any public museum or something like that.
Right.
Do they like cut that off because it's all like carved, chiseled in like really nice stone or whatever? Like if someone else says like, oh, I want to be on that one, they're like, oh no, like the $500,000 list. Like no, like we got no space left, dude. Like we would love to have you, but
that's a good question.
That's it. And then the people who gave also a lot of money and get their name on like the list of only like 4 names in huge font. Will they be pissed if they add like 10 more names or lower the threshold and start adding more names? I'm assuming people that have that much money care about that kind of stuff.
Well, you can't have the artist come and do a new engraving every time someone gives. Obviously, then you're essentially breaking even on that.
Yes.
So you got to have at least a wall's worth of names before you start.
There must be something when you give. There must be something in the contract saying they're not going to add this many names, or we're not going to do other shit like. We're not going to add like Suge Knight will not be next to you, like on the wall. Must be something. That's why Spielberg, I think, buys the whole building, so no one can fuck with him. He has like the 30-foot letters on all of his buildings.
Right.
These guys have a shitload of money. They probably have great Patreon accounts. If you wish to contact the show, hit us up on Twitter at Last Man Podcast or Facebook, also Last Man Podcast. All right, on to the show. Matt, you're a big tennis fan. You strike me as a huge tennis fan. I like when people like there's always like 1 or 2 good points in every match when it goes back and forth like 30 times and someone does something between their legs or some amazing shot. It's kind of cool. But I always like the tennis fans because the men's match will go on like 5.5 hours.
Yeah. And
they just go crazy like every point. I'm like, I don't know how you focus on tennis like that for 5.5 hours.
I don't either. And I also don't get like my friends who spend an entire Sunday and most of Saturday watching football also have like their baseball team back east.
Yes.
And then what are you doing? I'm watching the U.S. Open. I'm like, like, do you have a job, man?
Yes.
Like, this is becoming a problem.
Well, the women's matches go like an hour. When Serena plays, usually like an hour. There's shorter games and she just dominates. But these male tennis matches, the guys are very evenly matched. They'll go on for 5 and there was one, I think it was almost 6 hours. And it's like, that's insane. I don't think I can watch a great football game for 6 hours.
No, but I guess the hardcore tennis fans, which
there aren't that many,
mostly located in Britain,
yes,
toothless,
and New York, and in England,
right? They love it. Like when the match goes longer, it's almost like they love that marathon aspect. But obviously, the mainstream, the casual fan or whatever, not too into that.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I give credit to it's the guy tennis players usually that go for those matches. I don't know how they have stamina for that. It's like I mean, it's really no other. It's like a marathon basically. I mean, they're playing a sport for 6 hours straight, and they're losing like just gallons of water. And it's hot there. It's freaking hot in New York. So it's that part of tennis is impressive. Everything else I can't fucking stand. I don't get it.
I hate it. I still don't. I've tried to look at how the scoring works, and I don't understand why the numbers are in groups of 15 when it could just be 1, 2s, and 3s, if I'm not mistaken. Love. I don't know what it means.
Now
I don't want to know.
It is a. I knew kids who played tennis when growing up, and it's a naturally spoiled person sport. Because not only is it like, you know, you have to be kind of a little, usually more wealthy or something to play tennis a lot, because it's just not a sport for like poor kids. Because you need a tennis court. You need a tennis court first off. You need rackets. You need some other shit. You need a trainer because you can't really play on your own. But also, it's a sport that just, you know, delves into you as a individual player. So you're constantly just working by yourself. It's not a team sport. So you're just working on your own craft, working on your own self, talking about yourself. There's no teamsmanship. So you become a very selfish, bratty player, as they almost all.
Probably.
Yeah.
But why is it such a privileged sport? Because, you know, like you could get a racket somewhere, a used racket for not much. And, I mean, you know, Jesus, man, you're in Compton. There's concrete everywhere. You set up.
There are now, thanks to the Williams sisters. They built all the tennis courts.
Well, you don't even need but you could just set up a net and play tennis, like relatively. It's not like golf or something.
No, it's not as bad. I just don't think it's played in. I mean, they don't play baseball in urban areas anymore at all.
Well, urban areas they like things that are more cool. Like basketball is obviously a cooler sport.
Well, it's also played in the schools.
Doing it.
It's played in the schools, and it's probably more seen as a black sport, obviously as well, or a minority sport. So I just don't think a lot of black kids identify as tennis players. I mean, if you happen to be a woman who's gargantuan in size. You might think about tennis and how you could dominate, but it is actually like you got to spend all this time by yourself. Basically, I mean, I think people like teams, like a pickup sport. It's not gonna be like let's go play tennis.
Yeah,
let's go play basketball or let's play football somewhere or something like that. So Serena Williams had a big incident at the U.S. Open where apparently she didn't win, which is a big thing because she's won like 30 times. She's dominated the sport. Don't forget, Matt, she's the LeBron James of whatever. Remember that thing where she wanted to be seen as LeBron James, but not the female LeBron James, just the LeBron James, because she claimed she shouldn't be seen as a top female athlete, but a top athlete in general.
But she plays women's sports.
But she plays women's sports, specifically tennis, and has not shown a prowess in any other sport.
And she only plays against women at tennis.
And clearly she's not the same athlete that LeBron is. Well, LeBron probably could not play tennis because he's never tried. He clearly physically excels in a variety of areas well beyond Serena Williams could ever excel.
Yeah, and just because you physically kind of look like a female LeBron James,
yes,
like that doesn't mean you're the LeBron James of like there are security guards that look like LeBron James.
Yes,
that doesn't make them the LeBron of the police force or something.
So Serena had the big meltdown.
When are you going to give me my apology? You owe me an apology. Say it. Say you're sorry.
First of all, here's my fashion advice. If you're a woman with huge muscles, like can't think of a woman I know that has bigger muscles than Serena Williams. Literally, I can't think of anyone who has muscles like that.
Even the bodybuilders that are, it's well known that they shoot up roids and stuff. They don't really have that kind of bulk.
No, well, because she's got fat on top of the muscle. So she's got like I always call her Robert Newhouse. He was the running fullback for the Dallas Cowboys way back when. And he was known as having the thickest thighs in the NFL. He had like 40-inch thighs or some crazy shit like that. Right. He's had huge quads. And he was like not tall. He was only like 5'9", but he had these massive legs. And that's what she's like. She has like inordinately sized limbs for her body, like muscular-wise. And then she's put on weight, especially since she had the baby, which, by the way, almost killed her in childbirth, Matt.
Well, LeBron James could have many babies before he almost died in childbirth.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
He probably could have a baby, actually. I wouldn't be surprised.
What kind of elite athlete almost dies during childbirth?
I don't know. What kind of rich person almost in the U.S. dies during childbirth? Actually, I researched it. I couldn't find a single one.
I've never even really heard of an injury, even like a pulled hammy.
No, no, that's not true because every celebrity woman, when they have a baby, has a illness related to it. just because they do. It's just for some, I was just reading about Lady Gaga today. She has some illness, some illness people can't explain. Then I read another one about another female celebrity had a baby that she hasn't quite recovered from because she has some illness. And they always have this itis name at the end of them. I've just never heard of them before. So it's probably akin to like a vitamin D deficiency, which my doctor tells me 98.9% of the American population has. When they get tested, they always get tested low on vitamin D, which he says just means that's just everyone has low vitamin D. It doesn't seem to bother anybody. But for the vitamin D salesperson, it's really good. Okay. So Serena Williams smashed her racket. She looked enormous in this tutu. I don't know what she weighs as a woman, but she's got to be close to 170, 180. She's just a monster, and she smashed the racket, and then she didn't. The umpire took a point away from her, I think, for smashing the racket and just being generally screaming about the court and stuff like that. Meanwhile, by the way, she's playing this very quiet Japanese girl who's just crushing her, like a 20-year-old Japanese girl, which should be the story of the sports story of the year, because she's like, it's David and Goliath essentially. Right. She's beating Serena Williams, who is easily twice her size, and this woman's never won before. And then Serena gets in it with the umpire, judge, whatever the fuck they call him, the guy who sits in the chair, who was from I don't know where he's from. He was from Latin America somewhere, and he takes a point away from her for her unruly behavior, which I guess you can do. And actually, they did in football. They do in football too. They don't take points away, but they do throw people out for bad hits and swearing and shit like that.
Yeah, they can take
on sport. They take on sport. Yeah, they take 15-yard penalties. If you swear at the ref, they'll give you 15 yards. And you got a technical in the NBA if you swear at the ref, basically.
But in those sports, the ref usually, that's by no means their main thing that they're doing. Like, this guy just sits there,
yes,
and just like judges people.
Yeah,
like literally just like, I don't know if I like the way that person's acting right now.
Well, they were talking about that, but all the decorum rules. But I think the NFL has more decorum rules than tennis. Actually, if you think about it, they can't wear certain shoes. They can't wear certain things. They can't wear like logos. They can't wear initials of their cousin dying of cancer. They have to like follow all the rules. They get punished quite regularly. They can't kneel during the anthems. I mean, there's a lot of decorum rules in the NFL. So it's like tennis is the only, but tennis is seen as more genteel. So he takes a point away from Serena. Then she gets really pissy, starts pointing fingers at him, calling him a thief and a liar, and a thief for taking away her points, which is weird. She just would not give up on it. And so I think he took away the game from her. One of the games she was losing anyhow. This didn't affect the outcome of the match.
I thought he took away the game because she was getting instructions from her coach.
Yes. Oh yeah. Also, I forgot about that. Yes, her coach was in the stands and like one of the front rows, like waving his arms, telling her where to position her, like on the court.
I guess you can't do that.
You can't do that. And apparently, coaches all sort of do it, but they do it much more subtly. So they'll give like little like finger signs or something like that just to remind them. But this guy was gesticulating pretty wildly, so he took a point away from that. Then it just rolled into one after the other, and she got that mean-looking face, like bratty face. And she has enormous fingers, too, by the way. When she points her fingers at you, and she's in her giant tutu, it's fucking scary. I thought she was going to start shaking his ladder, and she's like shaking him off the chair. Would have been awesome. But then they took the game away from her, one of the games. Again, she was losing. This was not like the final round tied at the end, and they took it away from her. She got beat pretty soundly by this young girl. But here's the thing. So the outcome is, afterwards, of course, she claimed they booed this poor girl during the ceremony when they give the trophy. They booed this poor girl for winning because the crowd felt Serena had it taken away from her because she was all telling them that she had it taken away from them. The girl's crying. She got her face covered. Serena's looking all pissy. But then you're not allowed to, apparently after the fact, if this was any other athlete, you would just make fun of them like crazy. Right. Like the media would just rip on them. ESPN, everyone would rip on them for being just such a jackass, for the bitter face, all the anger, all that stuff like that. And they compare it to McEnroe. McEnroe got made fun of all the time. They did SNL skits on McEnroe constantly being a jerky boy, yelling shit out at players. But Serena, you're not allowed to make fun of. And if you are, you're accused of, she said that Judge was a sexist, which of course makes no sense when you're in a match between two women. But also that they allow men to swear a lot more and break rackets a lot more without getting punished, which may be true. I'm just not exactly sure how tennis works. But it may also be that since she's the only woman ever to smash a racket, it was a little disconcerting.
I don't know how that works either, because everyone's like, well, John McEnroe used to do that. And I'm like, wasn't that in like the late 80s?
Yeah, early 80s probably.
So like, I don't know what's gone down since then, but if that's the only like point of comparison, like perhaps it doesn't happen anymore. I don't know. If you're going way back,
I think guys, the tennis players swear a lot. They get really angry and they swear a lot and they scream a lot because they're just kind of big pussies. And you know, I don't know if you ever played a non-team, non-contact sport before, like golf or tennis. It's super fucking frustrating because you fuck up and there's nothing. You can't hit anybody. There's like nothing to do. And if you're like happen to be like say Serena Williams amped up on horse testosterone, and you're getting angry and you can't touch anybody or hit anybody or do anything about it, you just start smashing. You start breaking stuff.
But but there's also, I think, a difference. I'm picturing, because I've seen the men on TV cussing.
Yes.
But she walked up to the guy and pointed her finger.
Yes.
And like, I don't know, like I'd probably be like, I'd do the same thing, I think.
Yeah, I would too. I'd be like, I think also there's probably some sexism in the sense that like you're just not used to seeing a woman be so aggressive, so verbally and physically aggressive, that it might shock you as an ump, as a ref or whatever the fuck he's called, just because you're kind of used to like the guys doing that. But when the first woman ever smashes a racket, like you're just kind of like, whoa, that can't happen. I mean, I could see there's some subconscious sexism in that, but also isn't that kind of good because all the women just aren't as jerky as the guys are. So she stands out.
I think women with normal levels of hormones,
yes,
smashing a racket,
yes,
is not something they normally even do.
No,
or attempt to do.
It's
I don't know if
Yasiel Puig like smashing, breaking his bat over his knee or something.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see women doing that kind of thing. I mean, could her opponent even smash that racket to shreds if she attempted to?
I don't think so.
It would have taken a while.
I don't think so. She looked like she weighed about 110 pounds. Yeah, I don't think so at all. It is like, I mean, the question of sexism is like, the question of sexism is just a question of gender difference and what you'd expect to see. And I think the women swear. They probably swear a lot less than the guys do. So anyhow, she turned, as Serena Williams does, she turned everything into about me. It's the wonder of me and me, the victim.
It was a race thing. I think she said, I've been fighting for women and black people and stuff.
Yes.
I think that's what she said.
Yeah. She likes to fall back on I can always tell how serious an activist is, whether or not they become activists only when they are put upon or when somebody else is. Because she doesn't ever seem to pipe up about fighting for sexism and racism unless it's something that's affecting her directly that she's angry about, which means she's just a selfish brat, which she is. And she was just stomping up and down. And so some guy made a cartoon, was his name Mark Knight, in one of the Australian papers, where depicting her, everyone's seen it now, depicting her as like a giant muscle-bound brat, essentially bouncing up and down with huge gargantuan muscles in her tutu. And the line judge telling the Japanese girl, can't you just please let her win? Can't you just please let her win? Because they're all scared of her, which I thought was actually a very clever cartoon because it spoke to the fact that everyone is fucking scared of Serena Williams. LeBron does not have the same. LeBron gets a lot of deference, obviously, in the NBA, but he doesn't scare people. I don't think the NBA is scared of him. The Cavaliers coach was clearly scared of him. Tyronn Lue was clearly scared of him.
Yeah.
And the owner was a little scared of him. But it's not like other guys in the NBA or other people or commentators are scared to talk about LeBron.
No, and LeBron, you know, a lot of people don't like LeBron, but when he says a lot of pretty smart, common sense things about race that are fairly difficult to disagree with. But you know, LeBron's not pulling a race card when he gets a technical foul.
No.
No,
it might be a little different because he's playing in an all-black league, essentially.
Yeah.
So I understand where Serena's coming from. The fence, that, like, she came up. It was typical when they came up. Being the only black tennis player was probably not great. So I could see how you could, whether it's perceived or real, how you could see the racism. But that was a long time ago in her career arc. In the last 15 years, she's been the dominant champion of the sport. She's made more money in tennis than anybody else. She's won endorsements, roundly won awards from every organization she can. She gets complete entitlement and great coverage from all the sports press. No one can even say anything bad about her. If they do, she calls them out and rallies against them, and her 10 million social media fans like attack people, as they did this cartoonist with death threats, and drove him off of social media because they found the cartoon of her being a spoiled brat to be racist.
Yeah, if she's under such constant assault, then why has this never happened before? She's been in the sport she's been at the top of the sport for what?
15 years.
Okay. And this is the first time. So, like, obviously there's no conspiracy. This isn't one of those, movie trailers about the movie of the week where the whole organization's against me.
No,
that's just not the case.
No, there's in fact the Women's Tennis Association or whatever it's called, World Tennis Association, whoever sponsors the event, defended her against the ref basically after the match.
Yeah,
and said that she was in the right and the ref was in the wrong. They threw him under the bus like right away. He's been doing that job for like 24 years without a complaint.
Yeah,
they just tossed him under the fucking bus.
Well, good, by the way. That's the thing. I don't like anyone in this sport.
No, I don't either.
Because he's like, well, I think I'm going to boycott. It's like, dude, I could do your job.
Yes.
Like right now.
Well, you have to look good in the jacket and the hat.
A couple hours of training.
The jacket and the hat. Well, but still, he's like, he didn't necessarily do anything wrong, and she was in the wrong. So, it's a bit much. I mean, would the NBA throw the referee under the bus if he like gave a double technical to LeBron and threw him out of the game?
It'd be very rare. They might if it was super egregious. They might.
Well, they would probably tell the referee in the first place, don't do that because we need LeBron in the games.
Right.
So, I mean, the same reason they don't kick Kevin. Although Kevin Durant got kicked out of more games than anybody else, I guess, in the league. So,
but even though she was acting like an asshole, I just feel like as the umpire, your gig is to blend in. Don't be noticed, and I don't know, like taking the game away. I don't know if
he could have. I mean,
another
I think
way to handle it.
He could have let it go, and even it's funny because even like Serena's coming out, and everyone's afraid. Everyone just goes, "Okay, sexism, racism." That's obviously what it was because Serena said so. And even though we might disagree, we're not going to say it because then we'll be labeled sexist or racist. But even Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King, the legendary lesbians of female tennis. Came out and said it wasn't what she did wasn't appropriate. They all agreed the referee could have had more discretion, but they also agreed that she was in the wrong for many things, and it was a judgment call, and she shouldn't turn this into a sexist movement. Of course, they all said there is sexism everywhere, but this wasn't this wasn't the time for her to make this thing because there was no evidence of it. But the guy with the cartoon, like you can't make. So we're in the. It's a 2 or 3 year anniversary of the Je suis Charlie thing from France, where the guys got shot in the cartoonist office.
Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah, Charlie Hebdo, because they did the Muslim thing.
Yeah,
depicting Muhammad in the cartoon. It reminded me kind of that, which is like Serena's kind of like, she's kind of like Muhammad to these people. So you can't talk about her negatively. You can't depict her really at all in any cartoonish way. Because yes, the cartoon of a black woman is going to look like old racist cartoons just naturally, because they're going to amplify all her features, which the guy did in his cartoons. So I dare anyone to draw a cartoon of an angry, muscle-bound, tutu-laden Serena Williams that doesn't look racist.
But how do you? I'm kind of on the fence on this one. First of all, I don't know how you draw a caricature that's not exaggerated.
Yes.
I mean, Serena Williams has very strong features. She has big lips, obviously. So
big, sharp nose. She has huge muscles.
But I've seen some of his other stuff. So I think this is also. I would assume it's a Murdoch paper in Australia. And I saw him draw white guys, and they were more realistic looking. They weren't as
well. I think he was trying to exaggerate her, the monstrosity of her.
Right, that's the thing. So
her emotional state,
how you illustrate, like this situation versus if you're just drawing Donald Trump, he's sitting on Air Force One.
Yes.
It's not going to be the same level of cartoonishness.
Well, they do. Like if you look at, I look at the Trump baby, which is kind of like the caricature of Donald Trump. They're flying around London and everywhere else.
Yeah, it's
kind of like that. You got to have to exaggerate the features. They're going to give him really small fingers, and they're going to give him like the really, really stupid looking, overly hair, like hanging off the side of his head, and they're going to give him the overly dumb looking face. That's how. You ever had your been with a girlfriend, you had to get the caricature done at the tourist area where the guy's sketching paintings. First of all, he's like, what do you like to do? Do you like skateboarding? I'll put you on a skateboard. They always want to put you on a skateboard. No, I don't like skateboard. You like skateboarding. Here, you're on a skateboard. But they make your head enormous. They make your eyes or nose enormous because that's just, they all go to the same stupid fucking cartoon school.
Right.
And that's what they do.
They got to make something big. But when you see there was
no other elements of the piece that was racist. Other than some of her.
To me,
features.
it was just the big lips. The big lips, rung a little too close to the, the old school fried chicken commercials or whatever. That's just the one thing that I was like.
But literally, I don't think because of the old racist the history of racist cartoons, I don't think you could ever cartoon a black woman like that. You couldn't do a Serena Williams cartoon that wasn't deemed racist because it would evoke images of that old iconography, right?
Yeah.
So you really couldn't do it. So he did it. And now he's getting death threats. It's just insane to me that, like, I'm sure she's not a bad person. She's probably an okay person. She's just a annoying, bratty tennis person. She's John McEnroe, right?
No, I think she seems totally insufferable.
Really? Well, yes, but I mean, she's not hurting people.
No.
She's not malicious. She's just obnoxious.
Yeah.
Her husband, the guy from Reddit, has to put up with it. When they would pan to him during her meltdowns, or she kind of like you could see he was like probably gets beaten at home regularly. He's like, oh no, she's gonna be angry. She's gonna be really angry tonight. I mean, could she have married like a more perfect beta male for her personality?
I
like
love it.
A skinny tech nerd with the beard, with the perfectly groomed beard.
Like she was lifting up in their wedding photo.
Yes.
Because he couldn't do it.
Yes.
I mean, I would almost watch that reality show, just their day-to-day interactions.
I would cry for the guy just repeatedly. It's just kind of sad to see. I mean, obviously he gets something out of it, which is having a strong woman in his life who he gets to, whatever he gets to do, support her in all ways. I can only imagine what some of those ways are. But it's just kind of scary. I just don't like the fact there's anyone. I mean, we live in an era when, thankfully, we can mock the president of the United States in any way possible, including sexually, talk about his penis, talk about him sleeping with his daughter, talk about anything, right? Everything is open, and you can't be punished for it, literally, and certainly not legally, and then certainly not in the press either. You could be, what's her name, Samantha Bee, and say cunt about his daughter, whatever you want. And there's no ill effect whatsoever.
Well, you could be Stormy Daniels, and they come for you at the strip club just to teach you a lesson.
Yeah, there's some little stuff. Although Stormy Daniels clearly overplayed her porn card. But you can't say a single bad thing about Serena Williams. So I showed you that quote from the Guardian or something like that, where the guy's like, I can't, as a man, I can't obviously comment on the feelings of sexism. like the reporter actually wrote that in his opinion piece about Serena Williams. Like, obviously, as a man, I can't comment on sexism, whether or not it was happened or not. Like, why not? Like, are you unable to perceive the world any longer?
Why are you a writer?
Yes.
You can't comment.
Yes.
That's like the writer that goes, I have no words.
Yes.
Like, all right, 19-year-old.
But you literally can't. So you can make fun of the president, like banging the shit out of Ivanka. But you cannot actually make fun of Serena Williams. You'll be torn apart. She's like a sacred cow. She's a sacred cow. I think it's because she's a woman, she's black, and she's outspoken, and she's just the darling of the fucking media.
And she's willing to play that card, and it's like, it's just not worth it. Like, I don't want to have to explain myself to idiots because I have an opinion that slightly differs from yours.
Right. And also, by the way, she can get away with the victim stuff, and she just gets that. And she's never going to be. I mean, she compared the sexism to John McEnroe because he was obviously broke his rackets and swore and cussed and wasn't like they claimed that he got away with it. But I don't think he got away with it. I mean, he was roundly, mocked and made fun of in a way that she would never be mocked or made fun of. She clearly gets huge major brand endorsements that he didn't get. There's really no comparison. I mean, and I think people didn't like John McEnroe. He was seen as a bratty, obnoxious guy. Which you're apparently not allowed to say about Serena. So I don't know how the sexism, the gender thing, I think protects her.
I think I wouldn't say the race thing protects her, but it's by no means hurting her. I mean, she's getting everything she wants. I mean, it's definitely helping her to some degree.
It's another one of those cases where like there is obviously racism and there is sexism in this country, but it inordinately affects people at the bottom end of the scale.
Yeah, it doesn't apply here.
So obviously, black men in prison and the employment numbers and all the other elements of racial disparity exist, but they do not exist in women's. They don't exist in women's tennis. Exactly. So it's another one of those cases, like just like a celebrity complaining about her harassment, how it's ruining her life. While she's making All right, Matt, we have a email from Owen about Miss America pageant. How many years in a row now have you watched the Miss America pageant? 23?
I think the last time I just saw it on TV, I was in like maybe the 6th or 7th grade.
Did you watch because the women were hot, or just because it was a thing to watch? And
I think my mom was watching it.
Yes,
and then there were the swimsuits. So.
Women there's a certain number of women, not a small number, who are obsessed with pageants, like evening gowns and the pageantry and like the makeup. And once I found the girls were putting Vaseline all over their teeth, It really turned me off a lot. So they do that so their lips won't stick to their teeth when they have all the lipstick on.
Okay.
So I just saw like a thing on it, and it just so repulsed me that I thought like I don't want to have anything to do with it. I think I was 12. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, I dated a girl that was Miss Illinois.
Oh, nice. Humble brag.
She was a total nightmare, as you'd imagine. But
yes.
Yeah, I just heard the story. I mean, there are, most of them have eating disorders, and this chick was a fucking nightmare, and she'd been in it for a long time,
Yeah.
So if you get your kids into that, that's not going to lead anywhere good.
I think there's only two stages of the pageant business for the girls. There's the young girls in pageants who are clearly being molested and raped and subject to many pedophiles working in the industry, and it's John Bonet kind of gross. And then there's the older girls, like the college age girls, and you're like, aren't you too old? Aren't you too old for this? It's sort of like cheerleading. It's like, aren't you like? This seems like it should be for girls, although it's gross for girls too. But now that you're like an adult, aren't you too old to be?
Well, you'd have to get in it as a girl, because if you just started doing that when you were 16, 17, you'd be a crazy person.
Yes.
Even more so than you already are.
And also, speaking of sexism, I think it goes back to a time when, really, it just goes back to the time when women were seen as like, how do you cook? How do you clean? What kind of wife will you make? So it's it was sort of based on like how will you appeal to the men in the world?
Yeah, it's about being the perfect well-rounded.
Speaking about world peace in a very simple way.
Yeah, what do you call that? The cotillion or something?
Like the finishing. They used to have the finishing schools for women.
Yeah, like that. So it's basically that, and you're showing
how you walk, how you could walk properly, how you could speak at a dinner party. How you can make amusing conversation and also look good in a swimsuit at the beach.
Real creepy. Yes. I mean, I'm not saying I like a woman that, chugs a bottle of Jack and starts railing about politics, because that's not good either. But there is some middle ground. I mean, these girls are not. I'm sure a lot of guys do want that in a wife, but they're very vanilla. It comes off as creepy. Honestly, it comes off as very creepy.
It really is. That's why when they had the old things about Trump, like with the Miss USA pageant, going around the pageant, like telling the girls they were too fat or like look good in a certain outfit, I'm like, I could totally see that, because it's just such a creepy endeavor that Trump would be around it.
Right.
It's like when he told the girl that she was too fat to be in a swimsuit. That just kind of
he's the type of guy
who would love a pageant.
He would love a pageant girl to marry.
Yes, he did,
and they would never really love each other.
No.
But he would think, I have succeeded in this.
A trophy wife.
Not knowing what a real human connection is.
No, yes, exactly.
That's how he operates.
Well, it got worse because as Owen asked in the email, is it possible Miss America pageant could become any less interesting to both men and women? So Gretchen Carlson, who you may remember, who's going to be in the Roger Ailes movie is coming out.
Right, that's like a big budget.
Yeah,
movie.
Who isn't looking forward to the Roger Ailes movie? You got to run.
I don't know, because I've already forgot about the whole thing.
I did too, and I also don't want to see the fat suit they're going to put on somebody, because they're clearly not going to cast. There aren't that many obese actors, so they're clearly going to cast a regular actor and put him in a fat suit with the jowls and the whole thing. And I think it's going to draw away from the whole movie. Just seeing like I think they talked about like some actor is like 50-year-old actor. I forget who it was. And they're going to clearly make him look ugly and put him in a fat suit.
Can't they just get John Goodman?
He lost a lot of weight. He fucked everything up. Although he put the weight back on. I know it's a lot of the weight back on. Like he has to play all the fat guys. Like he kind of does, actually. For a while, he did play like the governor of Louisiana and stuff like that, the fat guys.
The fat Southern guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was really good at that. So Gretchen Carlson, who was forced to go down on or asked to go down on Roger Ailes and harassed it, like,
oh goodness,
I don't know. The sad part of the Roger Ailes story is I don't think he actually got a lot of sex out of it. I think it was more of degrading to women, whereas like kind of like he would just ask them like if they're getting laid and stuff like that, like to get his little fetish off. I think he was like even so fat and gross that he didn't even want to like have sex with the women, which is like if you think about it from a sexual harasser standpoint. That's the lowest rung. That's the lowest rung of the ladder. Like you're actually not getting. You're actually harassing and abusing your female employees and still not getting laid.
You're sort of just bothering the shit out of people.
And you're saying like dirty jokes in front of them just to watch them wither and get like your jollies out of that. That is really kind of
super
sick.
Gross.
Yes.
And he should have been fired, obviously.
Yes.
A long time ago.
But happy news because she got $40 million. And then she now she was put in charge. She was a former Miss America contestant. I don't know. Did she win? She might have won. She was from Minnesota, as you might imagine, and perfect Minnesota girl. So there was a whole thing last year. I'm sure we talked about in the podcast where like the head of the Miss America pageant had emails where he was emailing another guy working the show, talking about like the women in a very sexual manner, who was a bitch, who looked hot, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Which is the only reason you would be in charge of the Miss America pageant. So he was fired. So they brought Gretchen Carlson to bring a progressive female point of view into the Miss America pageant. So the very first thing she did was get rid of the swimsuit competition element of the show.
Well, they're kind of fucked because if we don't acknowledge that how attractive the women are, I'd say 50% of this at the very least, maybe 80%, whatever you want to say it is, then you can't keep doing the thing.
No, it used to be called a beauty pageant. They got rid of the word beauty pageant, but for forever it was called a beauty pageant. So it was based on who was the most beautiful woman. She got rid of the swimsuits, and then they started asking the women. They said they really want to focus on the personalities and talents of the women. So they still do the talent show where they bring out the fucking mannequins and do ventriloquism or play the violin. They still do that shit. But they started asking them, instead of asking like, how would you solve world peace? They started asking them like very topical social questions. So the girl from Miss Michigan said, I come from Michigan, the land of the most fresh water in the entire United States, but not a drop to drink in Flint. I'm like, okay, that's actually a good Roger Moore point. But Michael Moore point. Roger Moore just died. That's a good Michael Moore point, but not from a dummy girl repeating the line she practiced over and over again. It sounds like she's repeating something. Like, who wants to see that? So you just lost like Middle America. So the ratings obviously tanked. Is there any reason? This could have been asked for the last 20 years. Like, women still. I mean, we know why men might like it. Women still seem to need to justify this beauty pageant tradition, which has to be seen as sexist. And if you make it non-sexist, no one's going to watch.
Yeah, I don't know why they find it entertaining. I mean, I've watched it with men and women sort of a few minutes here and there, and everyone just makes fun of all the girls, and that's it. But yeah, there does seem to still be a woman that, I guess it's just any competition. I mean, you don't want to see them fuck it up. You know, you don't want to see them embarrass themselves like the girl.
That's all I watch for.
Was it Miss Teen when she kept she was trying to talk about Iraq?
Yes.
And it was just really sad.
It's from the Miss Teen Carolina.
From South Carolina.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're hoping that doesn't happen, so you're kind of on edge. You know, your picture, and you're a woman. I mean, everyone's insecure. Women are also insecure, just like men. And you're picturing just being judged.
Yes.
Just having someone inspect your nipples and you know, pry your mouth open, and what God knows what even happens back there.
I think it's about dog shows.
Yeah.
But it may be the same. The finger up the ass. I think it's dog I think it's dog shows. Licking their ears and stuff. Although I know a woman who competed in the Miss Universe pageant and about 10, 15 years ago. And as you might expect, she said it's the bitchiest group of women you've ever met in your entire life. And just did not make a single friend. Everybody just hates each other and is trying to destroy each other backstage. So it's exactly as you imagine with hot women like all in a group together.
Yeah.
Sabotage, like forming cliques, gathering up on one another, like tearing up dresses, like ruining makeup and shit like that. That would be behind the scenes is probably interesting. Front of the stage, not so much anymore. I feel like a lot of things should have changed when internet porn came around. And this is one, like guys going to buy magazines and brown covers or going to adult bookstores.
Right.
There's a lot of things like they're opening up we talk about that new sex peep show, something where in New York somewhere it was like we put the quarters in and still see the girls. I'm like, who still goes to that? Like, I assume Miss America, same thing. It's got to be guys over 60, right? People just who are in a pattern in their life and they're not going to change it.
I mean, I don't know what the ratings ever were. I mean, I know it was on. People are going to watch whatever's on, you know, primetime TV.
Yeah, it was a Labor Day thing. It used to be huge. It used to be a big deal. Miss America was a big deal, and she would go to all the football games and all that stuff like that, and go to the White House, and it was a big thing. But it's very anachronistic. And by the way, so if you're going to find that middle ground between women, putting women out there beautiful, but not allowing their bodies to be seen, put them in burqas and make them rehearse questions about political matters. It's over.
I mean, it's a matter of time before they're going to have the 300-pound woman out there, and the one-armed woman, and various disfigured, obviously not attractive women. That's going to happen, and then
normal-sized regular women, Matt?
Oh, regular women that are overweight,
average women,
and then one of them, once they're in, one of them's going to have to win.
Yes,
obviously. I mean, I get why, feminists. I'm sure this is they don't like this. This is a horror movie if you're a feminist just watching this.
Yes.
And so they lost a lot of respect from sort of mainstream people. Like even now, if I met Miss America, I'd be like, okay, I'll hang out with Miss America, but like, I don't take you seriously as a person.
No, it's not. The whole dichotomy of the feminist movement is that the feminists still have to support women accomplishing anything, even things that are blatantly sex. That's why the whole sex worker thing and the prostitute thing and the stripper thing, when they have to like support Stormy Daniels, they get very uncomfortable, but they kind of have to do it because those are the women they hate. They hate those women.
Yeah.
But they're women and they're taking on men, and so they have to support them. But that they fucking hate those big
behind closed doors.
Oh my God, they fucking hate those people. Matt, you follow the story. You wrote about a story this week about a serial dine and dasher. Is that what it's called? Is it dine and dash? Is that the official name?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I remember doing this as a teenager once or twice. I just don't remember what if they had an official title. So this guy, I'm only gonna say it's an Hispanic name because that's all I remember.
I think it's Paul Gonzalez.
There you go. How about that? That's pretty racist of me.
So.
I assume so. Was going on many dates. Did it say where he was hooking up on dates? Was it like Tinder, or was it like he had
the few were on Bumble. Bumble's the one where the woman.
It's for women, right?
Well, no, it's for guys, but the woman has to initiate the conversation.
We used to call it the Sadie Hawkins dance, Matt.
There you go.
Yes.
I think he did some Tinder dates too.
Yeah. So he would go on dates. He would go on dinner dates, this guy, and he would ditch before the bill came and leave the female date behind. And, and just take off. And I guess, like you said, chuckle in his car maybe. But he's now facing 16 years in prison for a variety of crimes, including the theft, not paying the bills, and also extortion of the women. And he's really being framed as like a horrible, like assaultive type guy. But I think you see it a little bit differently.
Well, I don't like the guy. I'm sure he's a bad guy. But I just think, when we look at these things, when it's you and me, getting having to go to court for some reason, this guy's being charged with extortion.
Yes.
It was, 13 felonies? His bail is set at $305,000.
Which is crazy. In California, he would have no bail, but yes.
This guy did, he would go on dates. He'd pretend he had to make a call, and then he would leave.
Yes.
This actually happened to me once. With
the guy you're going to dinner with?
With a woman.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
No, it's a woman. And I saw her walking out the other door. I'd actually known her for a long time. Anyway.
Did she walk out not to pay the bill, or she just couldn't stand you anymore?
I don't know. I never talked to her again.
Okay.
I think she was angry about something.
Yes.
But what I did was I go, I'm going to pay this bill. And like I got off easy.
Yes.
So I'm never going to have to see her again.
Yes.
So I just paid it. But a lot of these women, now I don't know if it's because women are so used to expecting the bill to be paid for them on a date. They either didn't pay the bill. So he did this 20 times apparently. So they would either not pay the bill. It's unclear. Some of them didn't pay the bill. Sometimes the restaurant paid the bill. I don't know if they paid just her part or the
girl was
whole
probably
bill.
crying. She was probably crying.
Right.
And then, like the restaurant's not going to like savage her.
Right. Well, that's why. So I emailed the district attorney.
Of course.
Just purely out of curiosity. It took 5 minutes. And they wrote back that I said, why is this guy being charged with extortion? I understand that he would be charged with grand theft even because if you add up all the shit that he didn't pay for, that would be over the threshold of $950 in California. But they said because they sent me a lengthy statement saying that because the women had to come forward in this embarrassing situation, that amounted to extortion, which is defined as essentially a violent or a threat.
They claim
threat.
They claim he was intentionally setting them up to be humiliated.
Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe he was. Is that possible?
Yeah, I just don't think it's extortion. I think it's asshole behavior. But I've always just assumed, like when this happened to me, there's two people at a table. One person leaves. One person forgot their wallet. I don't know. One person comes clean and says, I have $4 in my bank account.
Yes.
It's kind of by the table.
Right.
You work it out amongst yourselves, however it matters.
Yes.
What's important is we, the restaurant, get the money.
So you're thinking the women didn't bring money to the date?
I think at least some of them didn't.
Yes. They didn't have the money to pay for it. I mean,
they didn't have the money, like an emergency stash of
Like, what if I have to pay for dinner?
$200.
Like, what if I have to pay for dinner kind of
Yeah,
thing?
they're going into it like there's no way I'm going to be able to pay for this dinner.
Yes.
Maybe not even half of it. Who knows?
Is this your Serena Williams sexist moment? Are you identifying sexism here?
Yeah, because if you look at Tinder dates, and there's no data on this, I would say if you're trying to get laid, which is the whole point,
Yes.
or see the woman again, however you want to phrase it, the guy's going to have to pick up the check.
Yes. Normally, guys pay. In majority of cases, guys pay the check.
Even though we have equality in this country, the guy usually pays the check. I would guess maybe it's not working out. You agree to split the check.
Yes.
0 times does the woman pay the whole check.
Yes.
In the city.
I haven't dated
in
a long time, but I'm assuming the women always make that feign an offer of splitting the check.
Yeah.
Right. They'll say, "Oh, let me split it with you,"
and you go no, and they go okay.
Yeah. Because if you actually say, "Okay, we'll split it," then you're not going to get action. Because you just made a girl pay for half the meal.
I'll even just pay it if I don't think I'm going to get action anyway, because I don't like the awkwardness of it. But that's just me.
Yes.
And I don't go to restaurants I can't afford. We might
at TGI. You mean the jalapeno poppers at TGI Friday? You're picking up the whole tab.
This will be a happy hour type of situation.
The $2 drinks.
But it got me to thinking. Okay, this sucks for these women. I guess. I mean, it's not cool at all. To file a police report.
Yes.
I can't imagine a guy doing that.
You mean if he was stood up by the girl?
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't. I mean, there's definitely, this goes back to the, we were talking before, like there's, just with the Miss America pageant, there's definitely a, women benefit from, in modern age, the double standard of being treated like women, but also being treated like equals.
Yes.
So when they want to be equals, they can demand equality. And when they want to not be equals and go back to the old gallant times of the gentleman taking care of things and then being subservient and not capable of taking care of things like men, they can fall back on that. So they get they really get a double benefit.
Right. I mean, a really good example of this is I went on a date with this girl. I had met her on Tinder, I think. And
I can imagine those things. It's just so dehumanizing, isn't it?
Yeah, I've since stopped doing this for almost the most part. Don't have time. It's much better to meet a woman that wants to date you when she meets you in person.
Yes.
Than just roll the dice.
I mean, I know guys do those apps. They flip through until they see a girl that makes them hard, and then they go, oh, "Yeah, let's go out."
Yeah.
I get why guys don't mind being humiliated about that, but I don't know why a woman would ever be on a dating site.
Well, it's a free dinner. You could get a free dinner at a nice place every night.
I mean, I guess there are women like that, but I guess for a normal professional woman, why would you ever want to put your face on a dating app and have like guys decide whether or not you make them excited, like contacting you? I like your personality a lot. It was really great to see your face and get aroused by you. Let's get some crabs.
Well, there's not much stigma to it anymore. I don't think, especially like. There's the higher end ones. Like, I think Tinder is kind of a fuck thing, but like Bumble, there's the whole thing of like, I'm just here for connections, networking, that type of thing. Which, again, why you would go on a site like that to network with creeps is bizarre. But,
well, like eHarmony are those ones where you pay like $150 to get your whole thing,
right?
Like the perfect match. I can understand that. Or if like you do one of those Christian dating things. Although there's a story about the girl did the Christian dating where it says Jesus helps you find your partner. And then the guy raped her. I thought Jesus really must hate you because, like, Jesus picked you a rapist.
He drops the ball sometimes.
That's really sad. But yeah, so I mean, there is clearly a double standard. But I don't know if this case, Matt, fits your perfect example because what do you think the reason was this guy was doing this? Because he wasn't just trying to get free meals, probably.
To speculate.
Yes,
I would say he's a bitter guy with a vendetta against women.
Yes.
And the entire dating process.
Is this his way of doing like one of those like in the company of men type of like humiliating of women thing because he's been felt like a lesser man before? This is not the bigger man type thing to do.
No, this is a guy getting back at something for some reason.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's just dating or
is he a fan, do you think, of this podcast and listens to you over through the years talking about
hope not.
women not paying half for their dinner?
Well, the worst is when you combine it, because I went out with this girl. She somehow found out, because if you're on these apps, it just says Matt, right? It doesn't say my name. It doesn't even say what I do. I lie about that, obviously. But she somehow, from our texting, figured it out. So I show up, and not only am I, buying her drinks, she's lecturing me she knows that I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. That's the first thing she brings up.
Yes.
Proceeds to lecture me about the indignities of the Hillary Clinton situation. And as she's giving me this whole, really chewing me out about Hillary, I go, she says something like, I go, do you want another drink? She goes, yeah, why not? I go, oh, you're not planning to pay for any of these drinks, are you? And she looked at me weird.
Yes.
And I threw down roughly half of what the bill was and walked out.
The classic Hillary voter.
Yeah. So that felt good. So I can kind of see where he's coming from.
Yes.
Granted, I wouldn't.
It could have been you. No, it's different than 16. Like the women is like, there's some kind of anger. There's definitely hostility there. The thing I don't understand is like he didn't get anything out of this process other than emotionally distressing these women, because it's not like that guy who like lies about who he is and gets laid, and then the women find out later on he was not a doctor.
Right.
There's always like, and that guy, I think that one guy got arrested or sued or something. He was doing a false identity, and the women slept with him because he had rented a Porsche and said he was a doctor. It turned out he was like a janitor, and they all sued him. But at least that guy had a plan to get laid. This guy obviously was just having. I guess he got a free meal, although it wasn't free because he was stealing it, and he didn't get any action, obviously. So I didn't understand the story other than he's a really hostile dude, and now he's gonna be in jail for several years.
Yeah, I mean, he could have got the same, well, not the same thrill, but roughly the same thrill out of just doing what I did, which is here's half the money.
Yes,
deal with it,
and then he wouldn't have been on the hook for anything.
Yeah, but extortion sounds a bit harsh.
Poor guy. You can visit in prison, take himself in prison. I don't know why they put people like that in prison. What happens to them in prison? Nothing. I mean, first of all, we have to pay for the guy in prison for 3 years or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and like how dangerous of a guy? Like obviously
a dine and dasher,
bad guy.
Yes,
but like look at the people that aren't in being charged with anything. There's people that just squat in apartments and never pay.
Well, couldn't they? I mean, could you give this guy like? Make him work in a fucking restaurant, like doing dishes or something like that for service to the restaurants
well,
did
dude,
shit for?
That's what's the DA, it's a huge problem the way they operate. They put charges on you which are preposterous and make you plea.
Yes.
So now you're getting over sentenced, and really the problem is the threat is that you go to jail for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, so he's gonna have to plead guilty to something lesser.
Yeah, instead of just charging him with what he did.
It's really abusive, which is being a dick, and make him go work in the restaurants for free for like a month or whatever.
Because they don't want anyone to go to trial. See,
no, they don't want to go to trial, but they also punish it because this is a reverse section because he's clearly being punished more because he's the guy. So he looks fucking horrible. Matt, you can send him. I see you and he becoming great pen pals when he's in prison. Matt, let me ask you about Norm. Are you a Norm Macdonald fan?
Yeah.
I love Norm
like
Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald a lot.
I like the fact that he has never ever changed. Like his shtick has never changed. Like he knows it doesn't work for a lot of people.
Right.
But in 35 years, he's just never changed it. So he still does the same line of jokes that he's been doing for 35 years. The droll, sort of saying offensive things, but in a droll voice.
Yeah.
And he knows it's not like widely popular. It's not like Kevin Hart popular. But he knows that it's just like it's what he's comfortable with. And he just says some of the most outrageous. He has probably in the last 3 decades said more outrageous things than any other comedian. If you actually pay attention to what he's saying,
right? But he says them in a smart way usually.
Yes.
But you're right. Like that, I think that he gets off on that, like saying it's kind of twisted things. Like
like George Carlin was in your face about it. Like I'm going to say shit that offends you just to make a point.
Yeah.
Whereas he says offensive things in a slow, very methodical, dry, super dry way. You're not even sure what he said was offensive. He just says it without even stopping.
I was just telling my friend about George Carlin's bit where he used to claim he was a huge fan of terrorism because of the entertainment value.
Yes.
My friend was like, "No, you can't say shit like that." I'm like, yeah, man. I don't think you could say it now, but
no. But Carlin was funny, but he did it to provoke a response.
Yeah.
He wanted people like the 7 dirty words. He wanted to get arrested, so he was trying to get he's trying to point out the insanity of our morality. Whereas Norm Macdonald just like it could be 5 years later and you see the YouTube clip and you're like, I can't believe you fucking said that. He has a whole thing about gay people having sex, like about how good could gay sex be, and and how a guy says he's proud of his gay son is lying.
I had a hard time believing that these 50, 60-year-old men are actually bragging, at work like they're, hey, Bill, my kid, oh my God, we're proud of him, Johnny. He graduated from Harvard, a first in his class, you know what I mean? Now he's articling over at a law firm, and, oh yeah, he loves cock. This kid. he can't get enough cock in his mouth, his ass, his kid's always cock.
Like something nobody would ever say. But apparently, so he did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, and he says he doesn't like to do, written interviews for the newspapers because then they actually quote what he says and write it down, and everything. It looks really worse when you read it. So he came out. He supported Roseanne Barr and Louis C.K. when they were both busted. He was asked about it, and he said he reached out to both Roseanne and Louis C.K., who he's friends with, both of them, because he felt bad for them because they had like lost their entire careers like overnight. And his comparison was saying that their whole world was shattered in overnight versus the victims, their supposed victims, alleged victims, and it's not the same type of world-ending tragedy for those people.
Well, you kind of butchered the joke a little bit. But
yes,
I
did.
That was his point. Yeah.
Yes, but I did. But his point was that they had their whole lives taken away from them in the course of a moment for something they said, whereas the victims, and he's talking about like, what would you consider victims of Roseanne Barr making a racist statement about Valerie Jarrett?
That's the thing. I don't like what Roseanne said. I probably think she should have got fired for many reasons, but she has no real concrete victims in just saying something kind of racist.
Yeah, which is more ignorant because I don't think she didn't even know Valerie Jarrett was black. So she was just saying like some race subconsciously.
I think she did know she was.
Did you think so?
But whatever.
Roseanne's not. I mean, by the way, she's just insane. She's like when she's off her meds, she says shit. Although I love that Tom Arnold is judging her because I've met Tom Arnold several times, and when he's not on his meds, he's just incomprehensible. He is like says like some of the weirdest fucking shit you've ever heard.
So when I've seen him like doing stuff, is he on or off his meds?
I don't know what meds. He was during his coke period, he was just like impossible to like be around.
Yeah, he seems really flighty and like he just kind of says fragments of
shit, jumps around stuff, and it wasn't like he was saying dropping N-bombs or something like that. But he could have easily done that because I don't think he was in his right mind. Right. They actually made a perfect couple. As disgusting as sex was between them to think about. But I mean, Roseanne was his friend. Louis C.K. is his friend, and obviously, Roseanne Barr like cried for like a fucking week. She's your friend. She was like, and Louis C.K. was probably like considering suicide or some other shit. He just lost his whole world. Right. And Norm Macdonald's like, I'm their friend. I'm going to stick up for them. Now, he didn't have to make the extra comment about how Me Too victims weren't really huge, were over exaggerating their victimhood. But when that came out, he's on a publicity tour for, I think it's a Netflix show or some show he has on one of the streaming services.
It's a Netflix show.
Yeah. Then he's on a publicity tour now. So the Tonight Show just immediately canceled his appearance when he said that because of the backlash on social media. It happened, by the way, like in 11 minutes, which just seems like the speed at which like people are overreacting to like Twitter reactions is becoming faster and faster.
Well, the article I read this morning, I think it was on New York Post. It said that so he was in Jimmy Fallon's green room.
Yes.
And Fallon was trying to work out if they had to cancel the show. And Fallon said, one of my producers is crying.
Jesus.
Which was like, oh, really, man? And
a late night comedy producer crying.
So I guess they canceled his appearance on the show, obviously. But
yes,
he's welcome to come back. It's just right now, everyone needs a minute to recover.
Too hot to recover from his comments. Which, by the way, is probably one of the least offensive things he said in a while. But and also his point of view is probably represents a large chunk of the country. So I mean, if you ask people about Louis C.K., especially men, if you ask them about Louis C.K., they think there was a huge overreaction to what he did. Roseanne Barr is a little different because she doesn't have a male fan base necessarily. But even a lot of people think that Roseanne Barr was an overreaction. So I think his point of view is not like a way out there point of view that the Me Too thing is exaggerating and destroying these people like for something they did, like and taking away everything, their entire career overnight, telling them they can never work again, is a bit much.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a really extreme out there.
No, it's like they raped somebody. He's like, oh, suck it up, lady. You got raped. So what?
Yeah, I mean, he should be able to discuss it. He's an older guy.
Yes.
Like coming from his his background and having to see people deal with shit probably a lot more serious.
Way serious. He
like,
did shit.
I guess you could say he was minimizing it to some degree, but whatever. If you look at what Louis was doing, I think we all agree weird and creepy.
Yes.
Asking someone if you can masturbate in front of them or pull your dick out and them indicating sure, and then later complaining about it.
Now it's just Lennon. It's just Lennon and McCartney. A funny story.
Yeah, exactly.
Lennon pulls his dick out. Hey, Paul, let's want to see me masturbate? Okay, John. But yeah, I mean, but it's like wouldn't the more adult thing to do was be now Jimmy Fallon's kind of not a mature person, but wouldn't the more adult thing to do is to bring him out and then question him about his thoughts, like or disagree with him like on the show, so you could actually have a conversation about it.
I don't know, because I think Fallon doesn't discuss anything
serious,
worthwhile.
Yeah, they all have political. Yeah, you're probably. I mean, he's not the right guy to do the interview, obviously. But if it just broke and I was a producer, I'd say have him come out and have Jimmy Fallon like back up what he said.
Yeah.
So so after his shit got canceled, Norm Macdonald then of course had to apologize immediately and say that he didn't mean to minimize the victims of the Me Too shit, because Me Too is like the mafia at this point. It's just like it's the mafia of the entertainment business, and I'm assuming Netflix got contacted, whoever owns the show, and they then said you have to do an apology, which is how this works. I'm sure he meant none of what he said. But then the reason I love Norm Macdonald is because he went on the Howard Stern show, and he reiterated his apology and said, obviously, it's so obvious that you shouldn't, minimize the impact of women who've felt sexual harassment or sexual assault, that you'd have to have Down syndrome not to understand that. And then he said it a second time just to make sure it was heard. So you can see he's just not going to back down. Like, he's just going to say, like, fuck you, like.
He's going to double down.
He's going to double down because he just doesn't. I mean, nobody wants to lose their show. He doesn't want to lose his show. But, he's probably at the end of the
behaving as if he might not lose his show.
Yes. Or if he loses his show, he'll go back and do his YouTube thing or whatever, and he probably doesn't need that much money.
Maybe he doesn't really care.
I think he is like, that's why I like him. I think he's pure. I mean, he's just not, like George Carlin asked, is like, he's just going to rub the Down syndrome joke into the apology just to force people to realize how not heartfelt and stupid it is. and now he's getting flack from all the Down syndrome stuff. He's just not going to change. And by the way, he's not a bad person. So he has not committed a crime. He's just a comedian who sees things in a different way than people, that is completely politically incorrect and may make women on the Tonight Show cry as because they can't stand it. But he's just like, fuck, I don't know how old he is. He's in his 60s, I assume. He's just be like, fuck that. Like that. I'm right, they're wrong. Like, why am I going to change?
Yeah, and he's at a interesting level of fame. I mean, most people know who he is, but he's he's not a huge, like, I think if Mariah Carey went on Howard Stern and said Down syndrome once, she would have got yanked out by one of her people.
Yes.
And
I don't think Norm Macdonald has people.
I don't know if he does or not.
Yes. He's very calculated in what he says. Like, he thinks about this shit before he says it, and I know he was going to do his Down syndrome thing as a fuck you.
But is that like, so now the Down syndrome people are pissed, even though, again, like, I'm sure there's some Down syndrome people that could understand the nuance of the Me Too movement, but frankly, probably most of them couldn't. So that's also kind of true.
What he says is smart. It's always like technically accurate. It's just offensive.
But if you're a Me Too person, if you're like an activist in the Me Too movement, can you now use this to build your case, or is this just a separate case? Because obviously Down syndrome and Me Too totally unrelated.
Well, I think he's like you said, he's at a weird place in his career. He's never getting a network show again. That's never coming back. He had one at one time, and it just was it didn't work out. It didn't work out at all. Because I think he just doesn't like, if he doesn't like people, he lets them know he doesn't like them.
I think he's probably hard to work with.
He's probably really hard to work with, and he probably is very honest. And he probably, if he doesn't like a producer or the showrunner or someone else or the writers, he's going to tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
So that's not going to work out. So I think he's down to like his little smaller shows and his comedy shows and his cult following, and he can do shit like this. And I kind of admire that, just because it's like it's somebody has to stand up. Like, it's weird. We talk about it so many times, but comedians are the people you think would stand up to all this politically correct crap. But so many have the late night comedians, so many have folded to this stuff.
Right.
They were talking about how there was a piece about how brave Stephen Colbert was, or James Corden, who's on after him. They talk about Les Moonves in their monologues last night to rip on Les Moonves, but they knew about him for the last 10 years and didn't do anything.
Right.
So they waited until he was ousted. Then they got legal clearance, and then they were approved by the network to make a Les Moonves joke. That's not bravery. That's like, making fun of your boss like in the midst of the rumors is bravery. Wait until it's all over. That's not brave. No one's gonna stand up to this shit.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they've adapted to. I mean, why do you think Jimmy Fallon's in there?
Yes.
He dances around and like reads children's books.
Yes. He even did the thing where he tousled Trump's hair. Like, remember that? Yeah. It's like everyone's like got angry at him. Like, how could you be playful with Donald Trump? That's just what Jimmy Fallon is. He's just a goof. So he's not a serious person,
right,
or a serious comedian. He just is a goof that gets along with everybody and makes everybody look better than they are, which is why he has his job. So I don't know. I'm with Norm Macdonald. I'm gonna go watch some more of his old YouTube clips because they just if you go back and see, you have to there's no best of, but if you have to look at his most offensive stuff, it's so fucking offensive, and he just never changes his tone. So which is good. Chappelle kind of does that too, right? Where he just says completely outlandish things, but he doesn't really change. Sometimes he laughs at himself.
Yeah, I mean, Chappelle has stood up too, but I don't know. I don't really see him getting a network show, although I could see it happening as well. I mean, Chris Rock's latest Netflix special was he was going after stuff. I don't know. I think you just don't get promoted as much, and you
expect comedians to point out, take the minority position, and to stand up to bullies like the Me Too. So I mean, the craziest part about this is that so the CBS fired Les Moonves, and now the Me Too they're donating $20 million to Me Too. I don't even know what fucking Me Too. What do you donate to the hashtag? To Me Too related causes. They're donating $20 million, like a payoff. Like, all right, so here's the thing: our boss, we let him grab chicks' tits for the last 10 years, and so here's $20 million to the protest group.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
No, that's a bad. And time's up, whatever the fuck that other movement is. They want Les Moonves' $120 million. It's like an extortion. It's just an extortion racket. They're like the mafia now. Me Too is like the mafia now. So you can just claim it and just get your way with shit, and if not, you're going to take down your show.
Yeah, they're putting the $120 million into an escrow account, right?
Yeah, and if Moonves gets it, if the legal investigators find he did nothing wrong, which seems like that's going to be a really long shot, considering 17 women have now come out with stories. I love the fact that Julie Chen, his wife, he gave her 2 TV shows. And now they have to talk about him on the TV shows.
Oh, awkward.
So she had to recuse herself from one of them, be off for a week so they could actually talk about what a pig her husband was.
What was Moonves doing? Just groping?
He was doing the Roger Ailes shit, just groping and being sexually harassing, making rude comments, asking. I don't know that he actually had intercourse with any of the women, but he was doing sexual stuff with them, making them feel very uncomfortable. Over the top stuff, the stuff that wasn't like accidental stuff. And then Matt Lauer stuff. This was more Roger Ailes type stuff. So, and everyone knew. Apparently, I mean, everyone knows this shit's going on. Like Harvey Weinstein, everyone knows this shit's going on.
Yeah, that's been out for a while.
When the boss is grabbing tits at the office, everyone in the office knows immediately. Yeah. So no one's people actually there are rumors about it for long. It was Ronan Farrow who did the article. Finally, did the article again. That little twink is it's disrupting the shit out of every important media person.
He's going to end up getting hit by a train.
Yeah, that's what I think so. He can't weigh more than 110 pounds. It wouldn't be hard to take him out. But I like the fact that I actually admire the fact he's turned his life into dedicated to taking down powerful guys who are just pigs. So it's kind of funny because he just doesn't give a shit. Matt, let me ask you. Elena wants to know in email, why is Nicki Minaj, I know you're a big fan, giving Cosby Show actor Jeffrey Owens $25,000 just because the TV royalties he was living nicely from got diminished? Isn't there possibly a more worthy cause? So Owens is a guy, he played Cosby's son-in-law on the Cosby Show. I think I've only ever seen 3 episodes of the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
I remember him from the show.
Not familiar.
But the whole Cosby shtick was, of course, on the show was making fun of all the men in the lives of his daughters or his sons. He made fun of guys on the show. So, I mean, he was always the sane one and made fun of everybody else. That was his shtick. He tore me apart. Cosby did in a live comedy show once when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I had front row seats. Somehow my friend's mom got us front row seats on one of his shows. It was Vegas or Reno. I think it was Reno. And at one of those casinos.
Yeah.
And but it was the daytime show when the younger people could get in because they had no. I guess they had. The rules were you could get 16 and over, And so, and this was right. Looking back, I was right in the era when he was taking women up to his hotel room and knocking them out with shit.
Right.
But he ripped on I was in the front row, so he just picked on me and was like just fucking ripping on me the whole time.
Was it funny?
It was Cosby. I mean, people loved Cosby at the time. It was kind of funny.
Were you laughing?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't care. He was making fun of like, oh, you guys with the teenage boys, what are you doing? Like hanging out, like
making
fun of, how stupid teenage boys are.
So it's probably the same act. He just picks a new
guy. Of course.
Gotcha.
Sitting in his chair, all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
But it was right in the wheelhouse of when he was like repeatedly taking women and drugging them up in his hotel rooms in the Vegas hotel rooms.
Why did he need that chair, by the way? We should have known he was an asshole at that point.
With the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't stand up?
No. You need a glass of water next to you. Like, what's going on there? Not a bottle of water, like a glass of water. But this guy Jeffrey Owens was on the show for I think 4 seasons or 5 seasons. I assume everyone got paid huge royalties after the fact. Cosby obviously made a mint, but you're more familiar with SAG royalties than I am. But I think for a hit network show, they're pretty solid in syndication.
Yeah, it was still on. It was still syndicated, right?
Yeah, no,
up until recently.
Up until Cosby, until the accusations came out, it was like one of the top syndicated shows worldwide.
Yeah,
so,
I was assuming he was making a pretty good chunk of change off of that, and hopefully you have other shit going on. So when you're getting whatever between 50 and 150K in the mailbox every year, you should be pretty good.
Yes. Well, apparently he didn't have other things going on. He did a couple other acting things. And so he was pictured, he's now 56 or 57. The Daily Mail, someone got a picture of him bagging groceries at Trader Joe's in Jersey where he lives. He's married, he's got kids. And they made fun, like, what's this like TV star doing bagging groceries, making fun of him. And they, of course, Hollywood turned it on its head, a celebrity saying, like, why are you making fun of a guy with an honest job, which is all they do, by the way. Like, oh, he's an honest man with an honest job bagging groceries, and you're mocking him for that. And so everyone came out of the woodworks to, like, Tyler Perry's giving him work, like paid acting work. CSI, or one of the showrunners, would put him on the show as a recurring character. Nicki Minaj came out and said she's just going to give him $25,000 in cash, charity money. Like, this guy, like, is this case of like a guy who fell in hard times and they made fun of him. But in fact, he's actually, A, he hit the jackpot being on Cosby. So he had last 20 years of royalties. B, he's the son of a congressman. I don't know if they assumed because he's black, he had a hard luck story. But he's the son of a congressman, and he went to the Fame School, Performing Arts School, high school. And he went to Yale, graduated from Yale. And he did all this like Shakespeare Company stuff like that. Then hit the Cosby job, hit the jackpot. So by 30, he was like one of the luckiest fuckers in the entire world. Like one of the most privileged, luckiest guys in the world. And then I think he just decided after that, he tried to get some acting gigs, and he got a few here and there on TV. But basically he decided to live off the royalties. And I assume he was having not a plush, but a nice life. And then Cosby went and raped, people found out they'd raped like 198 women. And they killed all the syndication. And then he had to go get a job, and he went to Trader Joe's. So it's not exactly the story of like a tale of woe, your classic tale of woe, of like a street guy who was being made fun of for trying to rise up.
Yeah.
And it has a job at Trader Joe's. We're going to mock him for taking an honest job, for being a black guy from the streets who's taking an honest job. He seemed like a real loafer, like a real lazy loafer. And for some reason went to work at Trader Joe's when clearly he has the talents and the skills, the background to work at any number of other places in a job. I assume he did Trader Joe's because he just maybe liked Trader Joe's, or just wanted to be anonymous, or just didn't really want to get a real job.
Maybe he really needed a job quick. I mean,
well, he's there for a year and a half.
Right, so he could have been looking for another job.
I assume even other baggers at Trader Joe's look for other jobs in a year and a half. Like, if you ever go to the same store, you don't see the same baggers for like years.
Right.
It's supposed to be like it's like McDonald's counter work. You're not supposed to work there as a career. It's supposed to be like a starter. You move on somewhere else after like a year of high school or college. It's not like no one has a career in bagging. It's not a career outside of like the store I go to, they hire usually disabled people to do bagging. And maybe they do it for years and years, but it's not supposedly like an Ivy League grad is not supposed to be there for like a career.
I had a bagger at Trader Joe's, and I was buying Tito's vodka amongst other things.
Yes, of course.
And he said, "That's really good vodka. I have some in my water bottle." And then he pulled it out from under the check counter. So point being, I'm just saying it's not the highest bar.
No.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with working. It was working an honest
No,
job,
of course not. But I don't think that's what. I think the whole point was like people overreacted. So like, if you saw, you mentioned before the show, if you saw Latrell Sprewell or an ex-NBA star like bagging groceries, you'd be like, wow, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, I wouldn't recognize Jeffrey Owens, but yeah, if I saw someone I recognized from the '90s,
yes,
yeah, just bagging groceries, I'd be like, that's just strange.
that's weird to see a guy from a hit TV show. If you saw Tom Selleck, I guess he's still working on a TV show. Somebody like in a mundane job, like selling hot dogs at a stand.
Yeah,
like, dude, what happened? I mean, not the star, but the side star. You'd be like, that's kind of weird. So I understand how people.
Well, there's always the guy that wants to, it's usually the pretentious guy. This guy's a Shakespeare guy, so he's the guy that wants to get back to the regular life and earn the honest living. But that guy's usually, restoring boats. He's doing manual labor, but it's not at a chain place. It doesn't have the same romanticism.
No, he's like, he found some zen in his life. Like, there's always a nice story about like where'd that actor end up. And like you said, he's fixing up cars,
makes shoes or some shit.
Yeah, he's like found zen in his life because he probably was a former drug addict or something. Yeah. And now he's found like he's restoring houses in New Hampshire or some shit like that. But bagging groceries in Jersey is just like is a whole. So whatever, fine. Then why would you start giving him? Why would he become the charity case of Hollywood? Like, why are people sending him cash and giving him jobs? Could there not be a more struggling actor who might need a break than this guy? Like, is there not like another like teenager or 20-something guy who could really use a huge break?
It's a good point. It probably speaks to everyone's greatest fear. Like, my greatest fear would be being in my 50s and bagging groceries at Trader Joe's.
Yes.
All right. Now, I don't know.
Well, Tyler Perry's not thinking about it. Nicki Minaj doesn't imagine it. They already have so much money. But yes.
Yeah, but
that's a Hollywood thing. I could see it.
Whereas even people that work on TV shows, like they're not rich. Like I don't think a lot of them have. It's not uncommon to have a side job.
No, people overestimate how much money there is in entertainment for the non-stars.
Yeah.
It's like baseball before the TV contracts came in, when players made like $40,000 a year, and they all had jobs in the off season.
Yeah, but you figure out stuff like you get little things here and there, like this is a good gig where you drive deliveries for this rich guy.
Yes.
And if you don't show up, it's not a big deal, and whatever.
Well, this guy's clearly a smart and a connected guy. I mean, he went to the schools he went to, and his dad was a congressman, and he's clearly a smart guy. He had a hit show. He could have turned this into many different, I'm sure, career options for himself.
Well, yeah, if he was, well, that's why you should never get too comfortable. I mean, I don't know what he was or wasn't doing, but if he was just sitting there watching those checks come in,
yes,
and really, watching The Price is Right, and,
yes, that's what I imagine he was doing.
Not doing anything with his life, man. You can't do that, because you never know what's going to happen, and then jobs are weird, because he's obviously overqualified to work at Trader Joe's just based on going to Yale. But what if his resume has a 30-year blank spot?
Yes.
I mean, then he's underqualified to.
But he's still the guy who was on the Cosby Show. I assume he can get a job as like at a restaurant or something like that, or something as like a maitre d' or whatever he could be. I mean, he's recognizable enough to be able to take photos of him when he's at Trader Joe's.
Well, doesn't Trader Joe's offer really good benefits? I don't know why.
They probably do. Yes, they probably do.
I'm just thinking that for some reason.
They're very employee friendly.
Maybe
company.
It's his kids. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it could make sense somehow.
Yeah, it could. Although the year and a half, it seems like a really long time not to step up.
Right, he's been working there a year and a half.
Yeah,
and it took that long for anyone to notice, too.
Yes.
So
well, I would guess that people like in line recognized him, but someone actually took a photo and sold it to the Daily Mail, and got to TMZ eventually, of course. But it's just the idea that Nicki Minaj is like going, oh, he needs 25. Let me send him $25,000. Like that is like the most like out of touch.
Well, that's where I think that's an elitist thing. Like,
yes.
Oh my God, working a normal job is like the worst thing in the world. And it's not. Like, being on welfare is the worst thing in the world.
Well, that's why. Well, yeah, but that's why I think it's a total like hypocrisy, because they're saying like, oh, it was so evil how like they made fun of him for working an honest job. Oh, let me give him a check for $25,000 because he obviously needs my cat. He obviously needs my money. He obviously needs my money.
Yeah.
Or Tyler Perry just going like, look, dude, I know you tried out for TV jobs for like a long time and couldn't get them, but I'll just give you one because obviously you're bagging now. You're bagging.
I couldn't figure out. Did Tyler Perry give him a acting job or like a grip job?
No, he's giving him acting jobs.
Because that's the kind of job I would think he would have, as a job.
Yes.
Like something related to, like he could be doing some kind of
He could be
PA work.
Seriously,
or
he could
show
be
running.
He could be an acting coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume you can make more even as a moderate, mediocre acting coach than you could bagging groceries. So, I mean, he was on the Cosby Show. You use your fame, you get a few clients, and you do acting and be an acting coach in Manhattan or whatever it is across the bridge. Matt, let me ask you about academia. This is in your wheelhouse. Matt, so the new thing in academia now is the political correctness and this mafia of special rights groups demanding action so that they are never offended has now reached the halls of academia. So we always knew about the safe spaces and the fucking bubbles and all the protected spaces on college campuses and how everyone's become a huge pussy and how like deans of schools now just cede power to random marchers to do whatever the fuck they want. But now it's actually affecting like research papers and stuff. So there were two stories this week. One was this mathematician's paper. Well, if you've ever met a mathematician, they are the most aspy people you've ever met in your entire life.
I don't think I've ever known one.
They are like, they have no understanding of social norms. They're not into this for politics or peer review or privilege. They're pure science, like purely into the science, right? So they are completely geeked out by the science. So they have no ulterior motives other than the science. So a mathematician did this study, I don't know why, on the achievement gap between men and women at the high end of the intelligence scale, just showing that, because it was unpopular, that men have greater achievement at higher levels of intelligence.
Yeah, I didn't read the study, but apparently it was a social thing. He wasn't saying that men are innately, or he didn't find that men are innately more intelligent than women. It's just that there's more pressure on men and less pressure on women.
Well, they contribute more to scientific advancement men do than women do at the higher levels of intelligence.
But I think his point was that women don't have to work as hard to get to that level.
I don't know that he made was that in the conclusions. I know he had the findings.
I didn't read the study.
I don't know
that he read the article.
Yeah, I think he just did the research, and then a bunch of women's professors in academia came out and forced it to be not to be published and taken out of publication.
But he was saying that men are they have more people at the top in terms of elitely smart people and more at the bottom in terms of elitely stupid people.
Yes, and it reminded me a little bit of the James Damore thing from Google, the guy who got fired from Google, where he was just trying to show why men and women might be differently suited, inappropriately suited for tech work based on the way men and women think and the way they operate. From a completely just aspy point of view, from a completely like scientific point of view. Like I'm not trying to put women down or say men are great, because he listed all the faults of men. Or James Damore listed all the reasons why men are assholes, but how that actually played in their favor in the tech world, and how women were more thoughtful and considerate, and how that worked against them. So he's actually just doing it wasn't a put down of any gender, it was a purely objective thing. And this one got pulled because women complained, of course, about the findings. They didn't complain about the research methodology. They complained about the findings.
So it got pulled from the research.
It got blacklisted, so it never got published.
Okay, gotcha.
You have to, as a professor, you have to get your research published. That's how you get tenure and all that kind of stuff.
So it got pulled from the journal before it was published.
Yeah, it was never published because it was blacklisted. Like I'm assuming they publish like everything from every legitimate professor who does legitimate research. This one got blacklisted. And then the same week there was a study at Brown. A bunch of professors at Brown did research related to gender dysphoria, to mostly men, mostly boys, sometimes girls, feeling they belong and they are the opposite gender. And their study found that there was a big social connection to the number of, to the kids that found that they were having gender dysphoria, that they were born the wrong sex, was related heavily to peer pressure, social media accounts they were on, family members pushing them to, fall in line with that type of thinking, and that there may be a large social element to this idea of transgender, of being born in the wrong sex, which I think sounds like by the way, this is Brown University, a very progressive liberal institution. This wasn't Jerry Falwell's university trying to show how the transgender are going to hell.
Yeah, we're assuming these researchers don't have an agenda.
No.
They're just...
they're trying to figure out why there's a sudden increase in kids wanting to be the opposite sex, and kids taking hormones and potentially having, surgeries and things like that. There's obviously an uptick recently.
Right.
Everyone knows about this. And is it just because it's always been biological and now people are allowed to express the biology, or is there a social element to this happening, and they found a social element, and of course that pissed off the transgender activist community, who want to say it's all innately, you're born with gender dysphoria, you're born the wrong sex. It's not a thing that just because your family thinks it's great and your friends think it's great and social media tells you it's great that you're doing it. And so they basically forced Brown had actually published the article, had put out a press release talking about the article, the findings in the article, and then after the transgender activist groups hit Brown, they retracted the article and took back their press release and basically canned the whole study from from Brown's perspective, supporting the study. This to me was like pretty amazing shit, because when you think about like the one actual positive element of academia beyond all the obnoxious, arrogant people and all the horrible people in colleges, and the whole how expensive the whole system is and how broken it is, and college debt and college loans and all the crap that goes on with university systems, the one thing you could count on them was like really good research. It was like the advancement of human society, like with really solid like scientific research. Like you would count on the major universities to put out really world-altering research, and now it's being pulled based on its political correctness.
Yeah, which is kind of the last resort, because usually they you try and pressure these guys into what they can and can't say, or what they can and can't study, and we're going to boycott you and all that. But if you have tenure, and again, this is something when you probably read the proposal, it's like it doesn't seem that controversial. We're just trying to do some research here. But I mean,
and by the way, I would say important research, because they're probably trying to figure out why kids are feeling this way, because there's a really high suicide rate and other drug rates and stuff like that among the teens that experience gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
So I'm sure their ultimate goal is not to stop people from switching genders, but their ultimate goal is to reduce the negative impacts of this sensation.
Yeah, you're not helping your cause, and you're never going to help your cause by essentially censoring people.
No.
Anyway, but I mean, to wait until the study's completed and then have it pulled from a journal. I mean, if you want to, do a peer review of the study.
Yeah, there's no counter evidence to the study. Like we have our own study.
That's the way the system's supposed to work, though, right?
Yes.
You put it up, and then your peers, meaning other people in the field, pick it apart.
Yes, they try to pick it apart, or they show their own science, which is different.
This is just an attempt to have a unilateral. Like maybe there's another study in there that finds something more flattering to the transgender community. I don't know if flattering is the right word, but just you were assigned the wrong gender, like whatever.
But this reminds me of back in the day, like in the first wave of these types of studies in the U.S. was like when the tobacco consortium would have the researchers show that tobacco wasn't bad, cigarettes weren't bad for you.
Yeah, and
that was like the research everyone went with. Like the U.S. government would go with the research from this so-and-so consortium, which was always funded by R.J. Reynolds, like that. I would always find that tobacco wasn't really bad. Was actually, in the old days, they said it was calming for you and really good for you.
Yeah, and you can win for a while by cheating, which I think is what this is. You're just cheating. You're using your leverage at this liberal institution to have the paper pulled, which, I mean, should bring a lot of shame on the university. First of all, for even agreeing that that's on the table. Like, no, that's not what we do. We don't pull studies because you're offended by the scientific study.
By the outcome of the study. Like, they're not even like questioning the science behind it. They're just questioning the conclusion. Like, they're questioning the outcome of what they found. They're not saying like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Like you said, like a peer review. They're just saying like, what you're saying is hurtful to the transgender community. Like your science is hurtful to us, and therefore it cannot be made public.
Yeah, but censoring an honest debate is harmful to your community,
of course,
in reality. Whereas, that's the real threat. And like, I mean, with the cigarette companies, for example, like you can cheat and lie for quite some time, but eventually, the truth will get out, and you'll look terrible. You'll look like someone that should be ashamed of themselves.
Oh, they're still making a lot of money, Matt. They're still doing okay. There's actually the FDA. I don't know if you saw the thing with the FDA today with the vape companies. So the FDA finally named the 5 leading vape companies, and forcing them to like figure out how they can stop teenagers from vaping, because there was another massive study about like with teenagers who all now believe that like vaping nicotine is not bad for you. and where they got that understanding from
Right.
is largely from the vaping companies,
Right.
who, by the way, sell bubblegum vape and raspberry vape and like teenage flavored vapes and make it completely legal. So yeah, I mean it's really sick what's going on, but it's like the one thing I always counted on like some major university to do was to have like a legitimate study, like to come out with the actual science. You could say like, okay, well, fucking the Harvard Journal of Medicine is where I could get my research from. Like, I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to eat or not eat, but if I go to like, you know, the UCLA Medical Journal, I feel like I'm getting good advice. And now it may be tainted by vegans. Now vegans maybe tainting my nutrition advice.
Yeah, man. And I mean, if you're thinking about sending your kid who's a scientist, STEM person to Brown, I mean, like this would be a good reason not to. And plus, I mean, what are these professors, these researchers doing about this? I mean, are they?
They'll protest and they might quit and go somewhere else. They're tenured, so they can't be fired, which is one good thing about. I mean, we always make fun of tenured professors and how they can just coast. But one of the good things about it is when you do controversial research is you can't be fired.
Unless it's about 9/11, then you can be fired.
Then you can probably be fired.
But usually you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a completely insane feminist.
Yes.
Then you can get away with like really crazy shit.
Yeah, but
9/11, no, that's not on the table.
Yeah, like the feminist teacher who was sexually harassing her male student, but was able to keep her job just because she's feminist. The whole women's studies thing. What amazes me is like how this politically correct, how these activist groups act very much like Christian groups used to act, like right-wing Christian groups used to act in terms of boycotting shit. They really kind of taken their playbook in terms of like what those right-wing Christian groups used to do to shut down shit they didn't like to protest, to threaten, to all that stuff. Like if they didn't like the outcome of the study or the outcome of whatever, the TV show or whatever it was,
right?
They would just send nasty letters and threaten to boycott advertisers and their money.
Which I always thought everyone not on the far right viewed as pathetic.
Yes.
But apparently not.
Because it works.
Apparently they never learned anything.
Well, it works, for one. I mean, the transgender community has a tremendous amount of power compared to their numbers. So they figured that's extortion more than the Dine and Dash thing.
Yeah, but you're still not going to keep assuming this is accurate. This research is legitimate, I should say. Like, you're not going to keep it from getting out there in the long run.
No, it's out more now that you censored it. It's still out there. Although widespread, it'll never be reported like on the major news outlets, shit like that. They're not going to report the study, which I thought was kind of groundbreaking because I was kind of with the whole thing. Like the fact that you're born gay, I'm with that. Like for a while, they said it was all your parents hated you, that's why you were gay.
Right.
And then they, of course, found that there was stronger evidence that you were biologically born with a preference for the same sex. But they haven't found any of that in this gender stuff. There's been no science supporting the gender dysphoria whatsoever outside of psychological sciences. So, but that throws a huge monkey wrench into the transgender rights idea, because if it is legitimately a psychological choice, then you don't get the same inalienable rights that you would if you were born, if it's an immutable quality.
Right.
Like if you could change your race, if race was immutable, you could decide what color you wanted to be, then there would no longer be benefits to people of a certain color. So if deciding it being gendered, whatever fluid, is just a complete choice, then you no longer get legal protections from that. So I think that's the issue. That's the big issue there. All right, Matt, it's time for our final segment today, Panties in a Bunch. Only for our Patreon, our many, largely male Patreon members. There's a couple women in there, and maybe some transgender people. I can't pick up on their names yet. If you happen to like smart commentary, I don't know where the hell you should go. But if you happen to like hearing us two boobs talk about sexual assault on campus, head over to patreon.com for our bonus segment today. Hey, Matt, that's our show for today. You have something you wish to pimp and promote? Sell yourself.
MattRalston.net, Twitter at Matthew Ralston. And I've said this the last 2 or 3 weeks, but an announcement coming soon. I have nothing right now.
All right. All right, this is Lex. Last Minute. Talk to you next week.